Well, good morning. Travels with Dottie here at my home base, sitting in front of on the porch in my casita. And I think you're seeing George wander by there. Dottie's over in the corner in her bed. And I wanted to talk to you about, I think this is a really important topic to talk about. And I'm going to tell you a story that I heard. And I actually heard it on the movie Nomadland, starring Frances McDermott. And it's about a man that spent the last 20 years of his career dreaming about sailing around the world. So he started building his own sailboat at home over 20 years. And when his retirement day came, the boat was ready and it was sitting in his driveway, ready to be taken to the water to fulfill his dream. Sadly, the first day of retirement, he didn't wake up. He died during the night of a heart attack. And the woman that told the story said, I worked with him and that really affected me. And I decided right there and right then, I don't want to die with a sailboat in my driveway. And I thought it was a beautiful metaphor. For many of us, that sailboat represents an RV, a van build, a trailer, travel trailer, maybe even a boat. But in its very essence, it's the life that we dream of. That's what it represents. And why does this matter? You know, there are two dangers. There's over planning to the point of paralysis, where we can't seem to get to a decision point or to a plan that is actionable, that has, dates and actions, that kind of thing. Or the other danger is jumping out there far too quickly, unprepared. And I've absolutely seen both happen multiple times. Go back to the sailboat. Go back to the metaphor. The sailboat represents the life that you say you want, but you keep putting off. And the driveway is your comfort zone. That's where I'm comfortable. It's not too scary. Out there, getting on that sailboat is scary. Here's a very simple truth that you won't be able to argue. We don't know when our time is going to be here. We don't know when we're going to die. Even people that have been diagnosed with terminal cancer, where the doctor says you have a year to live, are around 5 years later going, I don't know, but I'm still here. Likewise, perfectly healthy people are gone without notice. And the second thing that we don't think about enough is we don't know how long we're going to be physically and mentally able to live the life that we desire. I've run into people that really made the move too late. They waited too long, and they were able to put enough money together to put together a really nice rig, maybe a big fifth wheel and a nice shiny $100,000 truck, but they're in their 80s and they haven't worked their way up to it, and they have health problems, and it doesn't last long. And before you know it, they're selling the truck and the trailer, and it was too late for them, for that lifestyle. On the other hand, you don't have to be my age. You don't have to be 65 or 70 or 60 or even 50 to do this. I want you to look at a channel called My Nomadic Dream, Herbie. Herbie does this lifestyle. He's a young man. He's in his 30s, and he does work occasionally to keep to finance his lifestyle. But he just got. I think he's just about finished building out a schoolie. And it looks amazing. And I'll do a video on him when I get to Quartzsite because I know exactly where he is. We used to camp across from each other, so I know where he is. And I'll go out there and I'll get him to give us a tour of his schoolie and talk about that and talk about how he, as a young man, is. I like the phrase, he's taken his retirement in pieces starting in his 30s. Good for you. So, for the majority of my working career, my assumption was, without really giving it a lot of thought, well, I'll work until I'm 70. I'll max out my Social Security. I'll max out, my pension. And when I'm 70, I'll have enough money to do whatever I want. It'll be great. I didn't think about anything different until I started doing what maybe you're doing now. I started watching people on YouTube talk about how they've changed their lives by adopting this lifestyle. And don't get me wrong, this is not the only option out there. If you're not satisfied with your life, it's not the only thing that you can do, but it's the thing that resonated with me and maybe with you too. And I started thinking, well, could I stop? I think it occurred to me when I was about 58 or 59. Can I do this? I mean, I know I can start collecting Social Security at 62. If I stay where I am 5 years until I'm like 61, I'll vest in the pension. And I went and figured out how much that would be. And I know I've got an old pension from when I worked at Neiman Marcus, and I figured out how much that would be. And then it's easier to figure out how much your 62 Social Security benefits are. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot more than I thought. I hadn't gone to the effort to figure out what the possibilities were. And there's no reason why I can't work like one day a week on the side. Why not? I can do that. So it was I hit the road at 61, just a couple of months shy of being 62. So I had 2 to 3 years to figure out how I was going to do this. So I spent a lot of time researching and budgeting. I had this Excel spreadsheet that I used to tweak almost every day during lunch at work. And one thing I knew I had to do is I had debt. I said, I got to get rid of all this debt. When I hit the road, I want to be financially carefree and ready for things that may happen. Like if I have a truck and a trailer, I need to be prepared for, what if I lose the truck and trailer? Do I have enough money to repair it, replace it, whatever? So I looked into that. So I really started cutting back on my spending as much as I could and started paying down debt. So by the time I retired and left, I didn't have that burden on me. And I had emergency savings that gave me peace of mind that no matter what happens, I can survive it. Now, I'm pretty lucky. I just talked about having Social Security and a couple of pensions and being able to work a day a week. Not everyone's that lucky. So not everyone is going to have what I had. I get that. So emergency funding may be less than what I had. So I'm not going to throw out any numbers, but a lot depends on, what kind of rig are you in? What is it, what is it worth? I have good friends that travel in 30, 40-year-old Class Cs, and they live in them beautifully. That doesn't cost a lot of money. Well, talk to Deborah Dickinson. Repairs cost a lot of money. She's I shouldn't have said that, because I just realized I think she's, over the years has put about $30,000 into this rig that she has, and she talks a lot about it on her channel. But there are alternatives, lower cost alternatives to when I share my experience. Please don't make the mistake of saying, well, I'll never be able to do it because I don't have the resources that Rob has. There are plenty of people that I know that are close friends of mine that have far less resources and operate a life as joyous and free as mine. There's practical considerations too. Understanding your RV, where it can go, where it can't go, how much stuff that you can carry in it. If you have a trailer, do I have a sufficiently large enough, powerful enough vehicle to tow it? And how do I find out about that? There's lots of YouTube information out there on that. One thing I do say is, like, don't rely on what a car dealership tells you a vehicle can tow. Oh, this can tow. That's no problem. It'll tow anything. They'll say anything to get you to buy. Not every one of them, but just be careful of that. You want to be talking and someone that's trying to sell you a trailer. Oh yeah, your truck will tow it, no problem. They just want you to sign and get out the door. I have a truck that says on paper it'll tow 11,000 pounds, and I'm towing around about 5,500, maybe 6,000, almost half of that, because I don't believe it'll tow an 11,000 pound trailer. Number one, because you have to take the total combined. I'm not going to go into details, but it's more complicated than just a single number, and you need to become educated on that if you're going to tow. Health insurance, getting prescriptions by traveling. I've got videos on that kind of stuff. My go-to is Walmart. Wherever I move, I transfer the next prescription to the next Walmart. It's not a problem. I'm usually an hour or less from a Walmart, no matter where I am. Having a plan for family and emergencies, that's kind of an obvious thing. But these are things that most of us will think about anyway, and you don't need me to tell you about them. But here's what I do maybe need to tell you a little bit about, is being prepared emotionally. Understanding the potential for loneliness, moving frequently, and decision fatigue. Loneliness, depending on how you decide to RV and where you stay, if you're not with other people, loneliness can set in just like it sets in if you're in an apartment or a house where you don't leave and you don't have contacts in the community. Or you've lived in a place where you do have those contacts and you don't know what to do when you break away from them and how to create new ones. That can create loneliness, hopefully temporarily. I also have videos on how to overcome that. Moving frequently. If you want to really minimize the expense of where you park your RV, people often will do federal lands, which are generally, you can stay for free for 2 weeks, then you got to move 25 or 30 miles away. So those people might move very frequently, and that can be tiring. Breaking your camp and setting up a new camp every 2 weeks doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. Trust me. And the older you are, the more exhausting that process is. And decision fatigue. What do I mean by that? In this lifestyle, you have to make more daily decisions than you're used to in a regular home and apartment. I'll give you a good example. Almost every grocery store you go to is going to be a new layout, and you're going to have to figure out where to go, how to get there, where do I find the meat, where do I find the cereal. It's like, I'm lost. What's going on here? Where's a good restaurant to eat? How do I get hardware supplies? How far away is that? Just decision after decision after decision, where when you stay in one place all the time, you're sort of on autopilot on those things. What's the danger, though, of waiting too long? I alluded to that. There's a myth of perfect timing, or the thought that the timing needs to be right. That's another way of saying it needs to be just right. It needs to be perfect. There is no perfect rig for you. There is no perfect dollar amount of savings to build up. There's no perfect time to leave. And waiting for perfect is what keeps the sailboat in the driveway. We're all individuals. There's nothing I can tell you that's going to say, this is the time to leave, these are the dollars in the bank that you need, this is the rig that you need. It's all individual. Well, what if I just wait? Well, what are the risks of waiting? Well, one thing, mobility declines. I've noticed it in 4 years. In 4 years, the physical cost to me of setting up camp and breaking down camp and traveling, it's far more difficult even 4 years later, between 61 and 65, almost 66. Energy. I mean, I've got pretty good energy, but I got to tell you, it's less energy than I had 5 years ago. And here's a thing that I think is so true, is most people regret the adventures they didn't take. What would have happened with me, let's say, if I had waited 5 more years? You know, what if I said, well, I'm going to wait to full retirement age at 67? So I would have been 5 more years doing a job that I loved. However, here's something that I discovered after I stopped doing that job. In my case, I was a licensed professional counselor that worked for Fairfax County government in Northern Virginia. And I worked in an emergency mental health setting, where I worked in an emergency clinic and worked out in the field, responding to urgent or sometimes emergent situations where there's a mental health crisis in the community. I loved it. It was exciting. And a thing that I discovered about me, what I consider exciting and engaging and I love, is also at the same time stressful. You know, my job was to meet people routinely on maybe the worst day of their life. And to be able to go in there with empathy and understanding and be able to construct solutions to their problems right there and right then. And sometimes things worked and sometimes they didn't. There were successes and there were devastating losses. What I didn't realize until I left is the stress of that was taking a physical toll on me. Right? I didn't realize it, but after I left, I'd been retired for 2 or 3 weeks, and I was working on something, and I cut my finger pretty, I think it was my finger or hand. I cut something really bad enough so I needed stitches. So I went to the urgent care. And to make a long story just quick and dirty, I ended up being there 3 or 4 hours, not because of the cut, because my blood pressure was so dangerously high. And they wanted me to stay there to ensure, maybe it's because you're upset about the cut or the cut hurts. And so we need to observe you for a while. And they did. And the conclusion was, you have pretty serious hypertension. My blood sugar was not good. And as I'm coming down off of this job over time, I got both those things treated. And over time, I began to experience a peace and calmness in myself that I didn't realize was possible. Because I didn't know any different. You know, I'd done the mental health thing. I did firefighting. I was a paramedic. I ran actually a paramedic county service for a while. And when I was in my business career, I was in big companies that were high pressure, and it's just go, 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 go for 40 years. And I didn't understand until I was able to step away from that for several months that, oh, you can feel this way? You can be, it was a foreign, being at peace and calm and full of joy and gratitude. I didn't know that was possible. That wasn't my objective. It was like, to me, RV life was it was another adventure. And don't get me wrong, it has been another adventure, but it's an adventure that has unexpected positive consequences. So in this video, I want to give you some tools for making a decision, whether it's making a decision about RV life, jumping on a sailboat, whatever it is that, maybe it's that you want to go live in an apartment in Manhattan in New York City. That's your dream. Whatever it is, let's talk about some practical steps for a framework for deciding. First category, stability and responsibility. Ask yourself these questions. Do I have enough funds to avoid disaster? Do I have a reasonable emergency fund? Is my debt under control? If the answer to those are, do I have enough to avoid disaster? Do I have a reasonable emergency fund? We're two ways of saying kind of the same thing. And is my debt under control? If the answer to any of those is no, that's a caution flag. Maybe the timing's not right. Number two is viability, the feasibility of doing it. Do I have the right, if I'm going to do RV life, do I have the right rig, or can I get one? If it's moving to New York, can I get a reasonably priced apartment? Is it reasonable? Does my health allow travel? Am I being treated for something that I need to be near one doctor? I can't get the treatment that I need as I move. Consider that. And can I afford the lifestyle that I want? Some people say, this sounds good, but I want to stay in RV resorts, meaning I want a pool and a pickleball court and all the top-notch amenities. Well, you can do that. That'll cost you, between $1,000 and $2,000 a month to stay in these luxury RV parks. You may have a good situation now where you live, where it's far less than that. But if you're going out and you're pricing apartments in any metropolitan area, it's like a one-bedroom apartment is more than $2,000 now. And to get in far more than $2,000 if you want the kind of amenities like the pickleball court and the swimming pool and all those high-end amenities, far more than $2,000. So it's attainable, but if you don't have the funds to do that, and that's what you really want, and you're going to be unhappy not getting that's something to seriously consider. Can I afford what I want? I don't need those things. So I just need like a little casita like this and I'm happy. No swimming pools, no movie stars. Urgency in reality. If I wait 5 years, will my body let me do this? You don't know. I don't know. But I can tell you that if this trajectory that's had been happening since I turned 60 occurs, I think that things are steadily going to get a little bit harder. I'll compensate along the way. I'll change and adapt and overcome. But I have my first 4 years on the road to measure how things have gotten a little harder. And I'm around people older than me that have been doing it a lot longer, and I learn from them. Here's a big question. Will I regret not going now? Now doesn't mean today, but imminently. Will I regret that? And I don't know. You might. You might. And here's the real question. Am I postponing out of fear or wisdom? I don't suggest that you postpone out of fear, but I do suggest that you postpone out of wisdom. Think about these three things as a three-legged stool for the urgency. If I wait 5 years, will my body still let me do this? Well, second leg of the stool is, will I regret not going now? And of course, the third leg is, am I postponing out of fear or wisdom? So, if the sailboat story and what I had to say resonated with you, maybe your sailboat is in your driveway right now. Maybe all you need is a nudge in the right direction. Maybe you just need someone to look at you and say, you're entitled and it's okay to live the life that you want to live. No matter what anyone else tells you, it's okay. I'm going to remind you of a few things. And when I say remind, I said, these are things I know that you already know. But life is fragile. Dreams tend to decay the more they're postponed. And the road is always waiting. But we aren't always able to take it. Just to wrap up for you, do's and don'ts. Don't be reckless, but don't be timid either. Do the prep work, then have the courage to go. And all courage means is, I'm scared to death, but I'm going to do it anyway. That's what courage is. Because none of us want to die with a sailboat in our driveway. All right. That's today's neighborhood chat. So let's together go off and live a life worth remembering. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.